Hello, and welcome to another episode. And today we're going to talk about intuition. And this was inspired by a question that turned into a whole training lately inside of the Lovely Radical Academy. And the question was, how can you tell what your intuition really is? My counter question to that is, how can you tell what's intuition and what's a fear response? And today, I'm going to run you through how to be guided by your real intuition. So a lot of the time, people are calling a fear response their intuition, their gut feeling, which then stops them or gives them an excuse for not doing anything uncomfortable. And I've seen hundreds of people do this for years, all of whom seem to still be stuck in the same problems. This is because the direct link to real intuition has become pretty noisy and clouded by life and all of the things in our external world and potentially all the things in our internal world that we're pushing down and pushing away. We've cluttered the capacity for us to recognize what the intuition is, because the jump time from the intuition, which is the first thing that comes in, and then the brain's jumping to fear response, has become faster and faster and faster out of familiarity, out of habit, out of just our brain doing what it's made to do, keeping us safe from anything that's unfamiliar and uncomfortable. So I'm not going to go into all the ways of how to turn down the noise and create that space for clear intuition in this video. If you want to learn more about that, you can check out many of my other videos or podcasts on generational healing. There's one called The Business of Sex, or you can come into the academy for both support with your physical situation that you're in, the external world, but also the internal, mental, emotional, limiting beliefs space as well, so that you can be the clearest, most in tune with your intuition leader, whether you're leading a business or a family. But today, we're going to go into 3 steps to be guided by your real intuition, even if things are super loud and cluttered and even heated right now. And a little bonus before we start, it's time to make your physical health an insanely non-negotiable priority. I'm going to say that again. It's time to make your physical health a non-negotiable priority ASAP. I'm not even kidding. So much will begin to clear and make sense when you heal your gut, when you balance your hormones and your cycle, when you boost your immune system, activate all your happy chemicals on a regular basis. This can be so simple and so effective. It's one of the things that we do inside the academy or in my additional wellness spaces. But when we reduce all of the toxins that we might be taking into the physical body, and there's many that we may not even realize that we're taking in, and replace them with great food and liquids and thoughts, we create an incredible physical reality that feels better and better and better every single day, which makes the clarity of mind so much easier to access, which makes the direct link to intuition become so much more obvious. Because emotional work is hard. Mental work is hard. Healing health issues on a mental and emotional level is really challenging sometimes, because you're going against generations worth of programs. And so it's a lot easier when your physical health feels freaking phenomenal. So if you're not jumping out of bed, if you're getting to 3 p.m. and needing a coffee, if you have sickness or symptoms or disease or chronic illness, we start there. We get you feeling so incredible. And then everything else starts to become so much easier. The clearer you become, the easier these steps are going to seem. And so I encourage you to make that a priority now. What has to happen for that to happen? And if you need the accountability and the blueprints to make it simple and easy, you guys know where to find me. Number one, go 3D first and create the space. So what I mean by this is most of the time we're falling prey to our fear response and the stories that our mind creates so fast because our foundations are really shaky. So quick note on intuition. Intuition, or if you want to call it your direct link to source, God, universe, higher power, guidance system, we all have access to it. It's always communicating with us. It's the first response, the instant hit, the moment. But what happens so often when we are cluttered, when our foundations aren't solid, is that we go from the, I've got this idea, or, oh, I know what to do, to here's all the reasons why you shouldn't. Here's all the reasons why that exciting, but also potentially different and uncomfortable thing is not a thing to do. Here's all of these very convincing stories from the brain, which is so clever, trying to keep you safe in unfamiliar discomfort and misery, right? Because that's all it knows. So it has to keep you safe there until you give it something better to move towards. That happens so quickly when you're cluttered. To go from the hit of intuition to all of the reasons why you shouldn't. And a lot of the time it's that people call their gut response, that people call their intuition, when really it's the fear response, right? We hear people saying, oh, it's a full body yes, or it's a full body no. A full body yes is the intuition, the hit. But we get it confused with the fear response that can come seconds or split seconds later, which will feel like, oh God, in the gut, or a tightness in the chest, or I'm scared. Because the pathway to all the things that you want, the solutions to your problems, the intuition hits that are guiding you to where you'd like to be, that's away from maybe where you really don't want to be, are going to feel really uncomfortable and unfamiliar. They're going to feel scary in the gut. They might feel a little bit like anxiety, because what they really are excitement and anxiety. Excitement release the same chemicals in your body. And yet so much of the narrative is telling us that if it feels bad in our body, then it's a no. And yet fear is actually the green light. Question is, are you brave enough to lean in? Now, all of this helps when we go 3D. So if you're wanting to create more space for intuition, for that direct guidance system, how are your foundations? How is your self-awareness, your goals? Do you have a clear vision of what you're wanting to move towards? How's your physical health? How's your money? Is it organized? Are you choosing healthy stories around money? Do you work with money? Do you have an incredible relationship with your finances? How are your important relationships? Are you communicating in them? Are you building them? Are you growing them? Are you nurturing them? What is the story you're telling yourself about how all of this is going? Your self-awareness, your physical health, your money, your relationships, also your business, if that's part of it. The day-to-day things that keep things going. Most of the time we're falling prey to that fear response coming straight over our intuition because our foundations are shaky. So go 3D first and solidify your foundation. So anytime things are feeling too messy or cluttered, use it as a honing beacon, as a grounding place to come back to and go, how are the foundations? How's my vision of the future? How's my physical health? How's my money? How's my relationships? How's the basic protocols in my business? It's this that will create so much space. It will reduce so much stress. It will have you feeling excited to get up and get out through the day because you're bringing more of this into the known, which creates more space in the mind. especially as women, when we move through the world with a brain that has 100 tabs open at any given time. The more space we can create by creating simple strategies and nurturing ourselves and our foundations, the more space we create for the answers to come in and for us to trust them and move from them instantly, rather than letting all of the stories talk us out of it. So when in doubt, go 3D, because all of the woo-woo practices in the world won't fix your life if these things are a mess. At some point, we have to face it. And there are some beautiful practices in each of these areas that can be put into place in your life that will create so much less stress and so much more clarity to open things up. And again, this is the pillars inside my core programs like LRA, to simplify these things. So when in doubt, go 3D, come back to that honing beacon, come back to those pillars and foundations and assess them constantly. Because it will be the best for your life, but also for everyone else around you. You can also do it together. The second practice that you can put into play is to go general. Go non-emotional and start to play with your intuitive response. So here's a little game that I give my clients sometimes. The game is to go into the store when you're grocery shopping and find maybe some treats or some snacks or something that you might want to buy, and find a couple of options. So maybe you're looking at the cake aisle and you're looking at the cheesecake or the chocolate cake. And so you're going to stand there in front of these options and you're going to ask, am I going to get the cheesecake or the chocolate cake? What's the first response that you get? Whatever that is, regardless of what any of your body says moments after, you get it. You devour it and you enjoy it and you see what happens. Notice the outcome. Another option is maybe you're in front of the cheese aisle. Do I want camembert or blue cheese? Or do I want the vegan cheese or the naughty dairy cheese? What's the first response? Buy it, move from it, take action from it. Now here's the kicker. Oh, I'll give you one more example just for fun. What workout should I do today? HIIT or yoga? Oh, I'm going to do HIIT today. Okay. First response. Hear it, action it. Or some of you might feel it, some of you might see it, but giving your unconscious or your own mind two options. And whatever it throws back first, do it. Take action on it. This is how we start to play with it. Now, here's the interesting thing. It's what you do when the action that you took from your intuition maybe doesn't go in a way that you'd like it to. So, for example, you buy the cheesecake instead of the chocolate cake because the first response was cheesecake. And then you go home and you eat it, and then you get sick. And maybe you can't go into work. What is the story you're going to tell yourself about that? Is it, oh my God, I should never have trusted my intuition. I shouldn't have got that. I should have got the chocolate instead of the cheesecake. I knew the cheesecake would make me sick. Or could you step back and go, I have been really exhausted and I haven't been stopping and I haven't maybe asked for a break. And so this is probably why I was more susceptible to become sick from a cheesecake, because I've been running myself down. And now, because I selected that and got sick, I actually have to take time off work and slow down. Right? So, oh, wow, how can I use this opportunity that I've created for myself in making myself feel sick to assess my foundations, to assess how I'm treating my health day to day, to assess the time that I'm giving to support my mind, my nervous system, my immune system, and maybe make sure that I'm actually taking breaks at work or regular time off work to really assess how I'm taking care of myself. Everything is always working for us, including and especially when it feels like it's not working for us. So can you start playing with that response and take action from it, and then recognize what happens, good, bad, ugly, and go, wow, I did that. What have I done that for? What have I created this experience, good outcome, bad outcome for? You start to realize how much you're actually being guided. The second part to this piece is to start recognizing what you're creating out of these thoughts alone, out of these thoughts and these actions from that initial hit. Maybe you get a car park at the front of the shopping center on a crazy busy Saturday, right? Maybe an opportunity pops out of nowhere after you were thinking about it. Maybe you go onto social media and you see an ad for something that you were just thinking or saying that you needed. Can you start recognizing and actively pointing out that you did that? It's to start rewarding yourself for that communication, to start anchoring moments of proof. For example, if I get that car park at the front of the shopping center on a busy day, as I pull into it, I'm going to be like, I created that with my mind. Well done. How cool is that? I'm going to anchor it. If an opportunity pops out of nowhere, I did that with my mind. How cool. I'll say it out loud and people think I'm weird. But every single time I do it, I'm anchoring a belief for myself that, whoa, I did that with my mind. I was just thinking that, or I was just feeling that I wanted that. And there's the pathway to it. I did that. 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 Right? Number 3 is to go deeper into it, to work with slowing down the gap between the intuitive hit and the fear response, and starting to align the intuitive hit with your goals, which might mean making harder choices from this more grounded and clear space. So something I like to do is to sit in meditation and notice the difference in the energy between the intuitive hit or idea or thought or guidance and the energy of the fear response physically in the body. The more you create stability in the foundations, the more you create better quality of health, and the more that you're playing with the response just for fun and anchoring when it works, you'll start to be able to recognize there is a clear difference in the energy, in the texture of the energy, whether it's the energy around you, whether it's the energy in your body. There will be a difference that you start to recognize. I'll tell you a couple of stories where I've done this. So there was a night in a relationship situation where I'd been up all night and I'd been in pain for some unknown reason in my abdomen, and I knew that I was going to have to make a tough decision in relation to this relationship. And it wasn't going to matter what I said or did. I knew it was going to be a tough decision. So I sat in meditation for a long time because emotions were really heightened, because I wanted a good outcome, but I also knew that I wasn't going to be able to get much of a good outcome because of how things were. So I sat with it and I sat with it and I started asking, what do I do? First hit would come in, and it was not something I wanted to do. It was guidance that wasn't going to mean I was going to get my way, that I was going to get happiness, that I was going to get enjoyment anytime soon. And so I asked again, and I asked again, and I was getting the same thing. And I noticed that it was quite quick to go, yeah, but you could do this. Yeah, but it could be this way. Yeah, but what about this? Because my mind was trying to find its way to the familiar, to the thing that I wanted that was going to give me the quick hit. But I slowed it down and started really paying attention to the not so great news that I was getting as the guidance. Essentially, it was that I was going to have to not only hurt someone to leave them because it wasn't in alignment, but I was probably going to have to be the bad guy in their story in order for me to stay in my values and place a boundary in a healthy way, but also to hold them to what they said they wanted. Right? It was incredibly uncomfortable, and it was going to mean I was not going to have a good time for a while to do this right thing by both of us. And yet, the more I slowed it down, the more I faced off with the long-term vision of why I would do the initial guidance thing rather than the continuing to play it safe or play it nice or go along with more unhealthy ways of doing things just so that we could both maybe feel a bit better for a bit longer. It started to really align with what my ultimate goals are for life and who I want to be as a woman, to do the harder thing in that moment. I started to notice a difference in the texture. Yes, there was a bit of fear in the body. There was a bit of annoyance in the body and anger in my body, because I don't want to have to be the bad guy in the situation. I don't want to have to be the one who breaks it off. I don't want to have to be the one who hurts someone in the short term in order to do the healthiest thing for both people in the long term. I don't want to be that. I want to have a good time. I want to be in love. I want to have all the chemical hits of being in some kind of connection, right? And yet, when I really slowed it down and aligned it with who I want to be and what my goals and values are, and with who this person said they want to be and what their goals and values are, the initial hit was right. And so I then got to ask, well, okay, what actions am I going to take? How can I do this in the best way possible? And so I could make a strategy to follow through in the best way I could, so that I knew the next step, so I wouldn't just fall into automatic programs that would keep me in the good feeling stuff that was not going to be the healthiest decision, right? I did this also another time in a very similar situation in a relationship where an argument had erupted, and I'd never been in an argument with a partner ever before. And I realized halfway through the argument that he was not arguing with me, he was arguing with an ex-partner. He couldn't quite see me through the red mist of that experience for him. I retreated to the bedroom and I was sitting on the floor thinking, what do I do? Things were heightened. Things were intense. My emotions were up. And yet I slowed it down. My foundations were pretty good. My health was pretty good. And I'd been playing with my intuition a lot at this point. So I slowed it down and I said, what do I do right now? And the answer I got was not the answer I wanted in that moment. Slowed it down. Asked again. First response was, you need to leave. Quietly, calmly, you need to leave. Everything that came after was, yeah, but this. Yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what if you try this? And then I aligned it with, well, what do you actually want to be? Who do you want to be? What's best for you and what's best for him? The first response was the most important and the most aligned with those values. Great. So I'm doing something that's more uncomfortable. What are the steps that I'm going to take right now? So I know what they are. So I follow those steps instead of falling into old patterns and behaviors that will keep me stuck in a situation that's not serving either person. So this is so powerful when you start to play with it more. And that's just it. Play with it. Gets to be a game. It gets to be fun because you actually cannot get it wrong. Even if you are moving from fear response, even if you're moving from fight or flight, You're still going to get lessons. You're still going to get things that lead you down the path. It'll just take longer, right? It'll just take longer. And we might have to create more painful situations and outcomes for ourselves to finally go, okay, I need to do something about this. I need to maybe take the more uncomfortable paths that I've been ignoring and listening to the fear response instead. The clearer you get through physical health improvement, strengthening the foundations, playing with this part of your mind and deepening that practice through the playfulness, like the shopping experience, you will begin to notice a very different texture in the energy between the intuitive response that you get and the fear response. Like for me, if I were to bring it into the science explanation, I can tell the difference between, so I would say I release more excited chemicals when I get the intuitive response, as opposed to the chemicals that are released for the fear response. So we release adrenaline for both. But in a fear response, we release adrenaline and cortisol. And in my body, I can now feel the difference between those two releases. There's a lightness, a slight lightness in the intuitive moment, and a little more denseness because of the cortisol, the stress hormone, and everything that comes after. And in the medical world, they're calling that anxiety symptoms, which can be reversed and released, especially through this practice. Both of them will be releasing a little stress hormone. This one releases more. This is why we get confused when we're really cluttered, when our foundations are unstable, when our health is not doing well. So when you slow things down more, it becomes more obvious. When you improve your quality of your health, it becomes more obvious. And the trust you build by playing with it and acknowledging it over time and celebrating when you create things with your mind means you'll have a better feeling of trust when the intuitive hits as opposed to the fear response. Both will feel uncomfortable. Both will feel uncomfortable. But you'll know which is more exciting and comfortable and which is more of a, hell no, this is me going into fear response uncomfortable. And this comes back to also self-awareness of your goals and your personal intentions, the values of where you're going and what you're creating, which is part of that foundational work. Because if we aren't deciding who we want to be and where we want to go and what that looks like specifically, then we're just going to be running blindly in circles of pain. If you'd like to learn more about this and all the other layers of work that you can do, then you can get in contact with me via social media, or if you want to learn the best place to begin, you can check out all the links in the profile. And if you're doing this work on your own, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing it. The world needs more people like you doing this work for sure. And until next time, choose it, create it, and enjoy it. And if you need help with this, come and join us inside the Lovely Radical Academy.